Welcome to Wasatch Weekends. I'm your host, Kimberly Perot. We are in the early signs of snow and in the current shoulder season. On today's show, we'll be talking to Graham Lutz and Bobby Wine about their projects and the latest and greatest endeavors they're embarking on. Also, local restaurants will be closing or adjusting their hours as we head into shoulder season and to gear up for a busy winter ahead. Head over to parkcityrestaurants.com to find out what their adjusted hours are or if they will be open over the next short period of time before the season starts. Speaking of snow, let's take a look at the local weather.
This weather report is brought to you by Sun and Ski Sports, your new mountain sports headquarters.
Welcome back. Now, I had a conversation earlier in the week with published author, TEDx speaker, neuroscientist, and much more, Graham Lutz. Let's have a look at that conversation. Now, welcome back to our show. Our next guest has so much energy and is such an interesting person, especially with all the work that he's doing around science and how to stay motivated. I've got Graham Lutz joining me today. Graham, how are you this morning?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am so good. So you are such an interesting person. I was digging around on LinkedIn and your website, and tell me a bit about you and how did you get started?
Sure. Maybe that's
Big
a long
question,
story.
I know.
Yeah. Let's see. So I got a neuroscience degree years ago and have just always been interested in the brain and how it works and the kind of mechanisms that are going on under there that describe and make sense of how we interact with the world. I'm actually pursuing a master's right now at Harvard in psychology to answer some of those kinds of questions. So I mean, that's, from an education standpoint, that's how I got there. But it's just always been, whether I'm in school or not, my wife makes fun of me for spending Friday nights reading scientific papers that I find especially interesting.
I love the spirit of perpetual learning. Now, speaking of, you are a published author, so you're reading other people's, but then you're talking about your findings and your research. So you have a book coming out. Tell me all about that.
I do. So the book explores the willingness to be wrong and the skills of being wrong well. The idea here is that our brains evolved for this world that we don't live in now, right? The current reality that we have is as foreign to the way our brains evolved as, say, TikTok, for instance, would be to a Neanderthal. And so we have all of these neural mechanisms that were really valuable in our evolutionary past that cause us big problems today. Things like filtering out information that doesn't fit with current beliefs, and things like attributing agency to threats that, maybe in this day and age really aren't a threat to our life. It's just a dude who cut you off in traffic, right? So there's a set of skills that I have kind of put together and talk about throughout the book, both kind of from myself and from published research and scientists over the past number of decades. And I think those skills are really important for thriving in kind of our current complex world.
And so I think that this is so interesting. I love the concept of how to fail well. And I always say fail fast because you learn from it and you learn how to adapt and to change. So love that. I cannot wait to hear all about the book as it's released next spring. But speaking of, you were also, outside of an author, you're also a public speaker and very evident by this interview here. But tell me, you've got a TED Talk coming up. So talk to us
I
about
do.
that.
I have it's a TEDx talk in outside of Boston on November 1st. So in fact, just this morning, I was out on a walk saying it a number of times as I walked for 30 minutes, but it's going to be on the same topic. And it's been a challenge to condense, a book's worth of ideas into about 10 minutes. But really excited to get in, to get that talk going and to get that done. Thrilled for the opportunity. I really am just so excited for the opportunity mostly.
So talk to me about the process. So you took this book and you turned it into a speech. So how do you condense it into a shorter speech and a whole book? I imagine and I envisioned, when you're writing a book report when you're a kid, you're doing the outline and then you're writing more about that. So talk to me about your process and how you do that.
Yeah. So honestly, step one, I just wrote the speech to be everything that I want to cover. And it was 90 minutes to begin with, which obviously too long. And so then I was able to, from there, pick out, okay, this is the one. If I could make 1 point, it's this one. If I could make 2 points, it's this one and this one. Right. And then started from that perspective and said, okay, if I could just do that, I wrote that and it was, say, 18 minutes. It's like, okay, so then here's a piece I can cut. Here's a piece I can cut. And then it was a process of taking these points that I make and seeing if I can do it in 4 less words here. And can I cut 10 words from this section here? And just doing that over and over. And it's been a process to get to the point where I feel like I've got 10 minutes that says everything I want to say and still makes sense.
Well, it sounds like there's a part 2 coming after you release your book. I can't wait to hear all about that. Now, talk to me about your overall purpose and your mission, especially as you have an LLC. What is your goal and what is the impact that you hope to make on people?
Thank you for the question. I love this question because ultimately the way that I am approaching all of this is with this focus on helping people understand the way their brains work so that they can overcome limiting beliefs. They can be kinder to themselves, right? They can increase motivation. They can increase consistency. Like everybody struggles with something different, but all of our struggles come down to neurochemistry. And so if we can understand how these things work together and how they affect our lives, that is going to enable us to pinpoint activities or strategies that we need to do that are going to allow us to, reach the big goals, have the big impact, do something significant. And so I really love a quote by Howard Thurman. I probably won't say it quite right, but it's something along the lines of, don't ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive, because what the world needs is people who have come alive. And so my mission is helping people come alive and then helping them get over whatever hurdles are going to keep them from achieving whatever that vision is.
I love that. I love the idea of helping people come alive. I think all too often we're all just kind of cycling through, you get up in the morning, you go to work, you come home, you make dinner, repeat. And I love what you're doing. I think that's such an excellent mission. Now, you have a big social media presence on TikTok. Tell us all about that and how fun the journey has been. What kind of information do you share with your followers?
Yeah, so TikTok has been interesting. It's slightly different than what we're kind of talking about here. It started a little bit by accident. I got COVID earlier this year and was sitting around without a lot to do and stitched a video with just a little tidbit of kind of historical information And all of a sudden it had 25,000 views really quick and people asking for more. And so then I did another and I did another. And next thing I know, I've got a video out there with 5.5 million views, specifically about syphilis eating the noses off of rich people in 18th century England. So all of these little kind of tidbits, historical, interesting things, just stuff that I've collected over the years. And honestly, it's been really nice to see people who are interested in it, because most of my life has been saying those things to my kids at the dinner table and being met with eye rolls or, oh, here goes dad again.
I love that. And I think it's so fun that you're giving information that we wouldn't find in traditional history books. So thank you for sharing that on your socials, and love all of the work that you're doing. Now, Graham, where can we go for more information to follow your journey, learn about your book release, watch your TEDx talk? Tell me all of the details.
Sure. So grahamlutz.com is the website. You can sign up for a newsletter. That is where you're definitely going to get information about kind of anything upcoming. Obviously, you can find me on TikTok, and LinkedIn is another place that I am pretty active. Any of those sources, I'll be talking about my book. I'll be talking about my TED Talk, sharing it everywhere I can as soon as I have the video for it. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, Graham, thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy this beautiful Thursday morning. We'll chat with you soon.
Thanks so much. See ya.
It is so important to be aware of what is going on in the world. I talked to Bobby Wine, musician, artist, actor, turned politician, about his latest documentary that is aired on Hulu, Disney Plus, and partnered with National Geographic. Let's have a look at that conversation. We're all about local community here, but I'm so excited about our next guest because it's community over the world. We've got Bobby Wine, the people's president, Bobby Wine himself, as well as Moses Buayo, the co-director of this incredible documentary, joining us here. So how are you, gentlemen? Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. So Bobby, I'm so excited to hear all about your story. Tell me a bit about you. You are an actor, musician, turned politician. Where did you get your inspiration, and how did you embark on this journey?
Thank you very much. I believe I'm not the first artist to get into leadership. We have Ronald Reagan. He was an actor. He became president. We got Arnold Schwarzenegger. He was an actor. He became governor. But I'll say that I was not inspired by just all these leaders. In fact, it was not out of inspiration. It was out of desperation. It was after seeing that the quintessential politicians that we know, the qualified guys that we knew, were not doing what we expected them to do or not representing us. So it is out of that that I saw the necessity to rise to the occasion and represent those that looked like me. I came from the ghetto, and in Uganda, more than 80% of the people live below the poverty line. So it was those voices that I'd been receiving through my music that inspired me to rise to the occasion and go to a formal platform and represent my people.
Absolutely. And I would say as a musician, you're connecting with the people, and you're talking about the cultural things that are impacting the community. So it very much is tied to politics. Now, Moses, you are the co-director of this film. So how did you connect with Bobby? How did you feel that you needed to tell this story?
Thank you so much for having us. When Bobby got into Parliament, when he started becoming very active in politics, he was really speaking to my heart. And indeed, his music at the time had been very consistent with the people and the suffering in Uganda. He was representing the voice of the people. He was, speaking to a lot of the youth and those who had been alienated in politics. So when my co-director, Christopher Sharp, reached out and said we would follow Bobby, I was very quick to say yes. And it's been a great journey. and Bobby represents the fight for freedom and democracy. And I felt like this is worth telling.
Absolutely. Now, Bobby, without giving away the full story, tell us a bit about Bobby Wine, the People's President, the documentary.
Oh, the documentary, not Bobby Wine, the me.
Yes.
Yeah, this documentary is a story of the people of Uganda. It's looking at Uganda through the eyes of this 35-year-old then artist who invites the world to Uganda to have a feel of Uganda, unedited, uncensored. For a long time, there has been a lie about Uganda. General Museveni has invested a lot of money to mislead the Western world about Uganda. But realistically, Ugandans have been suffering under the yoke of oppression for the last 37 years since General Museveni took power by force of arms in 1986 when I was only 4 years. And that is what has been ongoing. So this documentary shows me when I'm still an artist and my transformation into a political leader. It shows the intrinsic details of the recently concluded presidential election of 2021, which turned out to be the most fraudulent election in the history of Uganda. But also it shows the hope and aspiration of the people of Uganda, the massively young people, 85% of which are under the age of 35. It shows their aspiration and their dreams, and it invites the world to have a feel of Uganda.
Just watching the trailer of it, I'm so inspired by the work that you're doing and just how you've connected with the people of Uganda. Now, Moses, I would love to ask you a bit about the creative process. How was it following Bobby, following his story, and really putting together and crafting this beautiful documentary?
It was incredibly inspiring, and this film. With this film, we wanted to tell world audiences and the international community how fragile democracies are. And crafting this story, we worked in partnership and in close collaboration with Christopher Sharp, who's the producer and the co-director of the film, and with great cinematographers, Sam Benstead and Michele Cipollone. And it was just really a great labor of love and lots of emotion into it, because the story is close to my heart, and it's a story of over 45 million people, and you don't find so many times characters like Bobby Wine that come up from music and inspiring, brave, and heroic, and honest, and pushing for democratic values that a lot of the West aspire to. So it's really been a great journey, and I hope that world audiences will see this film and see the urgency of this story, because the erosion of democracies is happening around the world in many, many places.
And it is absolutely true. World politics affects all of us, so it's very important to be tuned in. Now, Bobby, do you have anything you want to tell our audience on what to expect from the film? Where can we watch it? Tell us all of the details.
Yeah, the documentary can be watched on Hulu and Disney+. Through the documentary, we want the world to see what's happening in Uganda, but most importantly, to show the world, especially the Western world, the United States and the European Union, that they are not disconnected from our oppression. Much of the funds that are used to keep the boot on the necks of the people of Uganda are, from the Western, from the European Union and America. America gives Uganda to the tune of $1 billion every year. This is the money that is used either to compromise, to bribe of people, but most importantly, to oppress the people of Uganda. We have for so long asked the international community to put conditions on the aid that they give to Uganda. Conditions like respect for democracy, respect for human rights, and respect for the rule of law. That is all we are asking for. We are telling the international community that we are not asking you to come and save us, but we are asking you to stop sponsoring our oppression. Maybe if so many people watch this documentary, they will call out their leaders, their congressmen and women, and ask them to change the policy in Uganda. We know that we can collaborate on so much things, but let values of humanity, values of respect for human rights and democracy be the guidelines to this collaboration. We would appreciate so much.
Absolutely. Well, Moses and Bobby, thank you so much for coming on. And Bobby, I am inspired by your efforts to change the world. And I think just like you said, it starts with you having those conversations with the right people, opening your eyes and being aware of what's happening. So thank you both for coming on the show. Very excited to watch this documentary. We appreciate you both.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
This weather report is brought to you by Sun and Ski Sports, your new mountain sports headquarters.
Such an incredible show today. Thanks for joining. I'm your host, Kimberly Perot. We talked to Bobby Wine, the people's president. Head over to Hulu to check out his documentary. Very fascinating stuff. Incredible person. I really enjoyed that conversation. And then Graham Lutz, he has a TEDx talk coming up and a book that will be released this spring. GrahamLutz.com, very interesting. You can also follow him on TikTok for interesting science and history facts. Thanks so much for joining. I'm your host, Kimberly Perot. Great to see you.